All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How you doing? Thanks for hanging out, guys. We're live on Rockfin, YouTube, and on Callin. And let's get it going. Just a quick note: if you live in Los Angeles, I am playing a gig on Thursday at the Offbeat Bar. Yeah, 7:30 p.m. Offbeat Bar, Los Angeles. That's in Highland Park. So come on through. All right. Where are we at? I continually ask, where am I at? Oh, let's look at this. I don't know. We kind of look at the same cycle of things over and over. It's kind of how it goes. But anyways, we're talking about, hold on. Limits to growth studies. Again, I don't, I know a lot of people are like, oh, some bad people were behind these studies. Yeah, but does that make the actual information any less true? I guess that's for you to decide. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Oh, hold on. I'm going to try and fix this. All right. Is it more clear now? Anyways, to get back to what I was saying. Yeah, there was a study done. Scientists at MIT in the 70s used computer modeling to predict that society would collapse by 2040, and updated studies have confirmed we are on track to hit the predictions of the model. So they're not running just on this one instance of modeling. They've actually gone back and checked, hey, 40 years later, let's check this out again. Oh, yeah, actually that it's pretty much right on target. Again, the idea that, maybe not so sane people invented, thought of the idea of the nuclear bomb or using nuclear energy to destroy people and things and the planet. Just because those people are nuts doesn't mean the thing that they made doesn't exist. Although I've actually heard people contend that nuclear bombs aren't real. Okay. I don't, there's another theory out there that nuclear bombs aren't real. I don't know. I think we have a lot of evidence of nuclear bombs being exploded. And one of the most famous being Nagasaki and Hiroshima and the devastation that happened afterwards. It's just very hard. I just would think that it would be very hard to fake something like that, even, all the way back then. Anyways, whatever. But okay, to go back to my point was decidedly nutty people, invented the nuclear weapon. That doesn't mean the nuclear weapon doesn't exist. Kind of psychopathic people invented a lot of things that we use. Or, well, let's call them people of dubious moral character. We don't know if they're all psychopaths, but maybe they had some moral what's the word I'm looking for? They had some shiftiness in the morals area. That doesn't mean that the things they invented don't exist. And so, it looks like this study is turning out to be pretty on the nose, just by observational, right? Again, the people in the denialist group will argue, oh, the models are wrong. Well, I don't know about your model. I don't really care about the models. It actually is very evident that something is wrong on the planet. We're missing a lot of wild vertebrates, wild animals, insects, birds are declining, polluted oceans, obviously the temperatures are going. I mean, there's just obvious things happening. You have to be a complete moron to go, oh, that's not happening at all. To take that as a whole, and that's how the cherry pickers will, they take this one thing and try to point out how this one thing is wrong. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, dude. If you look at the whole of everything that's going on, you can see something is amiss. And again, whatever. So we're going back to this. Anyways, they did, put in all these things. To kind of see where everything was going to go as far as resources, pollution, industrial output, population. And it looks like around, 20 in the 2030s, 2020s, 2030s, it looks like things are going to, everything decreases. Food, population eventually, industrial output, resources, etc. The above chart is taken from a book the scientists published called The Limits to Growth, which used computer simulations to see what would happen in the future based on the growth at the time. Scientists in the 1970s at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology predicted the fall of society using the LTG model. The fall of society will take place around 2040. The 2100s will be comparable to the 1900s in terms of the world's population, industrial output, food, and resources. What's interesting in this thread is that there wasn't a mention about climate change, which is interesting. I mean, it actually looks worse. They're just putting in the metrics of, right, all the things that are happening on, resources, industrial output, food, pollution, right, and how that's going to affect the planet. But they don't even, climate change isn't even a thing that was mentioned in this thread or in this report. If you put climate change in the mix, in the model, it's worse, right? All of these lines here, all the lines going down actually just all go to zero, right? The lines go down and continue on after 2100. If you put abrupt catastrophic climate change into your calculations, everything goes to zero at some point in this graph, right before 2100. Everything all the way down, and that looks way worse. So without climate change, it's actually somewhat optimistic that some things will continue on. The book itself was dismissed and derided by people such as the neoliberal Reaganite economist Milton Friedman, who himself was addicted to the delusion of endless growth, mainly for the rich people he adored. That is. The predictions in the book have recently been revisited and have been found to be an accurate representation of what has happened over the 50 years it was published. The MIT authors used their findings to argue for state intervention to control the use of resources to avoid the coming societal collapse that would happen without these sensible measures. No doubt another reason for Friedman et al. To attack and dismiss them. The Earth, according to LTG, has been terraformed beyond repair by greenhouse gases from fossil fuels. Okay, well, there's your mention of, I guess, climate change, making the next generation to endure the heavy legacy, a scarcity of mineral resources in a planet characterized by radioactive and heavy metal pollution. What we're living through right now is exactly the scenario that was predicted all those years ago and would have been utterly avoidable if it wasn't for Friedman et al. And their campaign to kill us all carries on to this day. That's right. All of the truther crowd that denies climate change are all just repeating this right-wing neocon think tank derived. They're all just repeating this thing without any data and evidence or observational evidence. Very little evidence of it. And I often ponder in my alone time why they do that. Because they're clearly not stupid people. In the pandemic line to those simulations, I wonder just how quickly we would hit societal collapse, 2030, next year, next week. The truth is that due to the decisions made, we can only expect things to rapidly get worse and worse from now on. There's just no other way to look at it unless we see genuine change in the right direction, and we don't see that. What we see is a world in denial, and that cannot imagine that we're about to regress so much. While we're regressing so much, and everyone and things drop dead or keels over, disabled around us. I don't know, weirdly worded tweets, but anyways. I mean, good summation. And, honestly, the plans that the WEF and, the 2030 agenda, the thing that the truthers are upset about or against, they should be against those things because they're not going to, I'm putting on my doomer hat right now. They are the plans they have in mind are not going to mitigate or do anything about climate change, not to the degree, and not in the way that they want to do it. They will absolutely not mitigate climate change. They're just trying to control things as things go down, and that's obvious. They're not going to do the right things about climate change. They're just going to set up an ultra control system for the planet while everything collapses. And good luck with that. Good luck with that. Good luck controlling something that's falling apart. I don't really have a lot of faith that they're going to carry out. They'll try, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to carry out what they think is going to happen, because unexpected consequences being, something that they never really take into account. And, you can't, it's really hard to control something that is falling apart. Just, you run the risk of actually putting yourself in jeopardy, as much in jeopardy as anybody else. So, the truther crowd is right to resist that and be up in arms about that. I agree. Anyways, but mostly wrong about the fact that something isn't happening, that nothing is happening, and that all of this is just made up. Mostly wrong about that. And that's, I understand why, because we'll go down here. A world in denial. They are part of a world in denial. A world in denial. Because you don't, because it's hard to function. It's hard to actually carry on. If you understand how bad things are, it's an emotionally difficult thing to grasp, and I get it. I understand that. It's probably why this channel has been an uphill battle the entire time I've done it, and most climate change channels are. These are difficult things to take in. Anyways. But we'll move on. It's very kind of doomy, collapsitarian type show today. A lot of talk about collapse. Pakistan, climate chaos. Our whole world is underwater and nobody has helped us. Who pays for the damage? In many ways, Pakistan's predicament crystallizes the debate. At least 1,300 people killed, 33 million people affected. Pakistan contributes only 0.8% of the world's emissions, but faces damages of more than $30 billion. They have to replace a bunch of homes, schools, severe drought and famine in Pakistan after a historically dangerous summer, etc. We'll look at this for a moment. And we've been talking about this, that the crisis is still ongoing, even though the big, blocky headlines are behind us. But who pays for the damage already done? The destruction has intensified the debate over a question of climate justice, whether rich countries whose emissions have been the main driver of climate change owe compensation to poorer countries such as Pakistan for the damage being inflicted. It's an idea that developed nations have repeatedly rejected, but Pakistan and other developing countries are pushing for it to be seriously discussed at COP27, brought to you by Coca-Cola, next month's International Climate Conference in Egypt. Anyways, that's all I'm going to cover on that, but I don't know. Eventually it's going to be really hard to put a price tag on the collapse of the biosphere. But it's just, numbers anyways, right? The economy of the planet, it's just a bunch of numbers people throw around. More floods. Heavy rains causing floods in Torrevieja. I think this is in Spain. Massive flooding. Man, just it never stops. It just doesn't stop. Here's another cheery article. Climate tipping points already happening in give me 2 minutes, Phantomas. I'll take your call in like 2 minutes. Climate tipping points could lock in unstoppable changes to the planet. How close are they? This is from a few days ago. Continued greenhouse gas emissions risk triggering climate tipping points. These are self-sustaining shifts in the climate system that would lock in devastating changes, like sea level rise. I mean, that's already a done deal. It's already done. Again, it's interesting when scientific articles or papers come out talking about things that are already happening as if they're in the future. That is always interesting to me, but it is what it is. The first major assessment in 2008. I mean, the monumental amount of energy has been required to start melting glaciers and the polar ice caps. That monumental amount of energy it's locked in, right? You can't, even if you stop all emissions today, right? And then there's other issues with that too. But the idea that, we're going to stop emissions in the next 10 years and then this huge boulder that we've gotten rolling downhill will just suddenly stop itself. I mean, that is just bonkers. First major assessment in 2008 identified 9 parts of the climate system that are sensitive to tipping, including ice sheets, ocean currents, major forests. Since then, huge advances in climate modeling and a flood of new observations and records of ancient climate change have given scientists a far better picture of these tipping elements. So they're talking about they keep on lowering the bar at which tipping points occur. In our new assessment of the past 15 years of research, myself and colleagues found that we can't rule out 5 tipping points being triggered right now when global warming stands at roughly 1.2 C. 4 of these 5 become more likely as global warming exceeds 1.5 C. These are sobering conclusions. Not all of the news coverage captured the nuance of our study though, so here's what our findings actually mean. Anyways, I'm not going to read the rest of this. It's very long. We'll go to this section right here real quick. While our assessment suggests that a collapse of ice sheets becomes likely beyond 1.5 C, ice sheets are so massive that they change very slowly. Collapse would take thousands of years, and the processes driving it require warming to remain beyond the threshold for several decades. If warming returned below the threshold, okay, so how are you going to do that? Before tipping kicked in, it may be possible for ice sheets to temporarily overshoot their thresholds without collapsing. So this is just absolutely goofy. Scientifically, like, let's suspend the laws of physics and to put our point in this. I don't know who wrote this. I can tell you, I guess, but by David Armstrong McKay. He didn't write the study, though, I don't think. I mean, that is just absolutely goofy. I mean, he's suggesting that, like, oh, we'll just reverse the warming and then they'll just stop collapsing. All right. Please remain. Keep your hands and feet inside the cabin while the car is in motion. All right. Quickly, before I take this call, I'm going to check the Buy Me a Coffee page. I have not received any coffees yet as of today. We'll check the Rockfin page for some tips. No tips yet as of yet today. So we'll take this call from Fantomas. How you doing?
So with the OPEC situation, changing subject, but not really, talking about the climate and the environment and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think is the next decline for us as everything starts to continue to spiral where it concerns fossil fuels? And let's say the next 6 months or I don't know, to a year, 6 months to a year.
I mean, it's most likely the economy. Starts. There's very large structural problems. In the whole supply chain thing, and and it's being undermined. The entire global economy is actually being undermined by climate change, and that's something that is really not being talked about, right? There's, and on top of the fact that we're, trying to kind of all the global, it looks like end game scenario, right? All the global powers are posturing and trying to grab, lock up the resources, right? We have all these conflicts that are kind of like skirmishes and everybody kind of getting into posture to start being able to, like, we're gonna take over oil production over here in this country or this area of the planet, and we want to make sure that we keep control of that, right? So all of that empirical kind of stuff is skirmishing is going on, but the economy, there's real problems with the economy going on. So
you know what I think they should do? What I think they should do is they should make climate scientists have the highest salary on earth, and then a lot of people on YouTube can ask them, how much do you make? What do you do? And then when people start finding out there climate scientists and they're the highest paid profession on earth. You know, we have a lot of social media influencers. Guess what they want to be? A lot of people watching. Guess who they want? They don't want to be an entertainer. They don't want to be an athlete. They want to be a climate scientist. What do you think?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's the same argument as being like a teacher, or right, the old
Yeah, I know. We know
the
it's
old
not going to
argument.
happen, but my
Right.
main point is the focus on everything. The reason why I brought it up is I was watching those YouTube videos where this guy would just spend his time going knocking on houses and saying, or going up to random people, how much do you make? What do you do for a living? And to me, like you hear the answers and then you hear what they suggest
Yeah.
to do with your lives. It's really funny because it's like, yeah, that's your currency and your paper and your imaginary wealth and whatever it is you're building in your mind. That's not going to be important in a few years.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't.
And
Yeah. I don't know. I don't.
and I mean, what's even funnier is like they got these lavish homes in Florida, in Miami, and all of these places, in all of these danger zone areas.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so ridiculous how out of touch people are.
Yeah. I mean, I actually subscribe to the kind of the I don't see things kind of like going down the drain all at once. I just see it as a slow, step down decline of what we're doing. And it maybe speed up a little more at the end, but the economy is gonna take some more hits. As the climate kind of like undermines, the food production and supply chain acquisitions, it's just going to become apparent that we're in a downward slide, and then then it's anybody's guess. Do we have an all-out kind of endgame world war? Does everybody slide into hyperinflation and poverty? In which case, if it's just an economic decline, like some places will hold on to normalcy longer than other places, right? You'll have pockets of people still like. I always refer back to Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. I don't know if you've ever read that, but
but I know who she is. Yeah.
It's a great, I'd highly suggest this book because she did a really amazing job of kind of describing like a near future scenario of, I don't forget the year it was set in, but maybe it was the 2020s or the 2030s, where the wealthy live in, the wealthy and the middle class live in kind of like walled off parts of the cities. It was set in Los Angeles, the beginning of the book. And then you had a huge kind of like underclass of people, homeless, dirt poor, and they were just scavenging for whatever they could, and then they would kind of assault the walls of the middle class, people that were still living like in USA middle class normalcy, right? Still had jobs at the university or still went to work at the plant, still doing the normal things, but chaos was slowly encroaching on that normalcy, and that's kind of, I mean, in my mind, that's kind of how it looks like it's going to work out. Chaos will just slowly encroach on the normalcy of the Western civilization, I guess. Yeah, and then after then it goes on to collapse, where you just have to get out of this like pandemonium, like the homeless, the teeming masses that don't have anything just completely go bonkers, right? And then there is no normalcy, and then then everybody kind of scatters and runs for the hills, right? I don't know if that's how it's going to work out or not.
Well, I'll leave you with this. I think that what's going to happen is that a lot of people like to say it like an end game scenario, like a finality, as like a one type of narrative. I don't think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like a multi anthology series, like Twilight Zone. You're just going to have many different strange stories. Maybe some will be a positive outcome, but most are going to be really struggling and really dark, confusing, and yeah, that's what I think we're headed for. And by the way, if anyone's listening, you should definitely go hit up Patreon, Black Bear News, and subscribe. Do it now.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, later.
Later. I totally agree with that. That it's going to look very different for a whole bunch. There are 8 billion people on the planet, and reality is. I'm struck by how different reality is for so many people, right? And especially for wealthy people, middle class people, aspiring wealthy people. Reality is just, and then you have impoverished people, and reality is so different. It's like living on another planet, depending on your economic status. It can be. Your reality can be like living on a different planet. Or if you just go to different parts of the city of Los Angeles, right? People who have grown up in particular, parts of LA and never left, and just never really left, a couple of square miles where they grew up. I mean, it's just, yeah. There are so many different realities that one could actually partake in. And yeah, as collapse happens, there'll be, some people might even thrive for a while, right? When collapse happens, some people might even be, like living the life, making all the money or doing all the right things or owning the right business or, whatever it might be, finding a way to monetize the collapse to their advantage. Like, I'm sure that's going to happen. There will be people like just living it up. And other people just really, really struggling. So we'll see. All right. Let's get back into it. More. Honestly, I don't know if I have enough time to do all of these different studies justice, but this is all in the kind of daily conversation. Just published, scientists have warned that climate change threatens the habitability of large regions of the planet. And even civilization itself. Scientists are calling on the IPCC to research collapse scenarios. I mean, we've... have we even read this one before? I don't know. No, probably not, because it's from a couple days ago. Climate change and the threat to civilization. You know what? I'm going to save this for tomorrow. And this looks like something good to read. We'll read the whole thing tomorrow. I will leave it. Because there's a couple other things I want to cover and not too much time left. More floods. This is... in El Salvador. The Carrillo area is one of the worst affected by the floods in San Miguel. In the lower part of the colony, the water level is estimated at 1.3 meters. Colonia de Carrillo, or La Carrillo, is San Miguel in Salvador. Some footage of people being saved from the water. From the professor. This is what 3C in the Arctic and 1C in Northern Hemisphere temperature anomaly looks like in motion. What you see is a chaotic polar jet stream of heat and cold into the mid-latitudes. The stupid Fs in the eastern U.S. will say, what climate change? It's cold. So we have these... I mean, yeah, it's... the jet stream is shredded. Look at these, and if you can imagine the what you could draw as the ripples of the jet stream, just like all over the place. Okay, YouTubers, thank you so much. I'm going to exit YouTube today. We'll finish the rest of the show on Rockfin. Thank you guys for hanging out with me every day. We'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon.